All right, John, we're going to be debunking more Patriot myths. I didn't. We've already done a few of these in a past video, and so we've got a lot more of these, I guess, to go over.
Well, I think we've got 4 or 5 we're going to go over. Again, one of our biggest hurdles to overcome is all these myths that people believe, and they are firmly entrenched in. And because I think, you know, what we're about is let's get to the truth of things. If we've got a myth out there, let's debunk it. Let's, you know, throw it off the top bunk.
Yeah.
Let's debunk it.
Well, we were talking about the definition of debunk, and so let's read. I thought it'd be fun to read the definition of debunk, what it is to debunk a myth. So debunk is a verb to expose the falseness or hollowness of a myth, idea, or belief. And then the origin. We were looking up the origin of it. 1923 from debunk, first used by U.S. novelist William Woodward, 1874 to 1950. The notion being to take the bunk out of things. Right. So we're going to be taking the bunk out of the Patriot myths.
You know, you've heard the term, you know, that's full of bunk. You're full of bunk, you know, which is garbage, myth, you know, whatever, falsehood.
Okay. All right, so how many do we got? I know you said you had several of those there.
We've got the myths we're going to go over today are going to be Congress adjourning, sign and die. This one comes up quite often, saying that when Congress adjourned, sign and die after the southern states seceded from the Union, that the United States ceased to exist because it didn't have a day to meet again. So that's out there all the time.
I'd like to interject something real quick before you go through the rest of them. In that, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people, outsiders, may really understand what these are. It's the Patriot myths. There are patriots out there that are trying to identify the source of the problems in America, and they're pointing to these, and they're totally wrong about it. And so it's hard for us to get them on the right track. That's basically what we're...
There's websites out there and people that are pushing these things that have voluminous amounts of information on them, and people are getting into these websites. I think one of the ones we're going to be dealing with is Edward Rivera. Mm-hmm. You know, he's pushing several of these. I'm not saying he's pushing all these, but we're going to bring that in, some of the ideas he brings in. But he's not alone. I'm not saying he's the only one doing some of this stuff. But yeah, because what we want to do is we want to get to the truth. You know, and to get to the truth, if you, on the table you've got so much confusion, you know, of myths and falsehoods, we can't figure out where the truth is. So let's start throwing the myths and falsehoods out, and let's quit going back to them so that we have less confusion and we're starting to focus on where we lost America. Like what you said, a lot of people are putting these out, and they may be operating in good faith that, hey, I think this is how it happened, and they've got these, they cobble together these concepts to make it plausible, and most of them just aren't if you look deep into them.
And there's a lot of people that are losing their property and things. I mean, they're putting all their faith in these things, and basically, throwing their whole lives into these things, and they're losing property and getting thrown in jail and all kinds of stuff, aren't they?
People are taking a lot of these myths to heart. They absolutely believe them to their core, to the core of their being. And again, we're trying to provide a little bit of knowledge, education, and let's look at the other side. Let's be a little balanced here. Let's just go off the deep end. So the second one we're going to be going into is that George Washington took the wrong oath of office, and this concept about there's different United States. You got the United States, you got the United States of America, and things of this nature, and so therefore the whole government has been wrong all the time. We got the Articles of Confederation, and the Northwest Ordinance created the government of the United States of America. Depending on who you talk to, some people say the Articles of Confederation did it. Some people say the Northwest Ordinance created a government called the United States of America that is still in operation today. Well, one other that I want
to... As opposed to what? I mean...
as opposed to the United States of America under the Constitution of the United States. That it's a fraud. And in fact, there's another topic I want to bring up is the constitutional con job. that the Constitutional Convention was a con job. In fact, let's start with that because I don't have a slide with it, and I might forget that one.
Okay.
The myth is that we were under the Articles of Confederation. In order to alter or amend the Articles of Confederation, you were required to have a unanimous vote by all the representatives of all 13 states. Okay, unanimous in order to alter or amend it. And that when they went to alter and amend it, they morphed it into the Constitutional Convention, which they had no authority to do. And so therefore, the Constitution, we went from the Articles of Confederation without authority to the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution of the United States of America was not adopted by unanimous, all 13. And so therefore, we're still under the Articles of Confederation. You know, so you got that concept. Well, let's do a little history lesson. We were under the Articles of Confederation. It was supposed to be a perpetual union. They were supposed to in order to amend or alter the articles, it had to be by unanimous consent. They sent people to do this because they felt it wasn't working properly. So the representatives to do this, to alter and amend, and that was all they were authorized to do. And I admit that. That's all they were authorized to do. Well, Rhode Island didn't show up to do this. So that meant nothing they could do could come to fruition. You know, they couldn't do anything. And so we have this principle in this country that whenever the government's not working for the people, that the people have a right to alter or abolish and institute new government. Well, the people that were at this conference or this convention to alter or amend the Constitution went into the Constitutional Convention. Well, did they have the authority to go into a Constitutional Convention and create a new form of government that was binding on all the other states? Well, no, they had no authority to do that. But did they do that? And the answer is, well, no, they did not do that. All they did was say, we're going to propose a new form of government, but it's not binding on anyone. You know, they all signed off on it, but that wasn't binding. And so they drafted this new Constitution for the United States of America, and that's what the Federalist Papers are. They sent it out to all the states. You know, we're operating on the Articles. We think it's not working well. Here's a new proposed government. If y'all want to join this new government, you know, we have a right to do that. We have a right to alter our form of government. And once, if you go to Article 7 of the Constitution of the United States, once 9 states ratify the Constitution of the United States of America, that is their formal act of secession, leaving the Articles of Confederation and going under the Constitution of the United States of America. So were they amending the Articles? No. You know, they were creating a new form of government. They were actually leading that one. Well, and as history shows us, 9 states left. By the time George Washington was inaugurated and the Congress was inaugurated, or the government was inaugurated, there were 11 states in it because this was not a changing of government from the Articles to the Constitution, which is the myth, that we went from the Articles to the Constitution without authority. Mm-hmm. You know, it had to be by total, by all 13 voting. Well, they didn't amend. They changed. They said, we're proposing a new one. We're abandoning the Articles of Confederation. Mm-hmm. Who wants off this ship? It's not working. And once the conventions of 9 states say we want to be under the Constitution, it became binding on them because they were sovereign states. They could choose. And
it was completely up to the states whether
completely up to the states. Absolutely. Hmm. And so the issue is the Constitution of the United States of America. It does not matter where it came from. It doesn't matter whether men who had no authority to draft it as part of their delegation of authority under the Articles of Confederation. I mean, the Constitution of the United States of America could have been a piece of paper someone found on the street and said, you know what, this is a good idea. Let's send it to all the states. Hmm. And if the people say, you know what, that's a pretty good form of government. It doesn't matter that these guys had no authority to draft it. The issue was whether the states had authority to adopt it.
Mm-hmm. Which they absolutely did.
Which they absolutely did.
Okay.
Congress adjourning sine die. Sine die is a Latin word that means without day. Under this myth, it's the concept that when the southern states seceded, Congress adjourned. They didn't have a quorum, and they adjourned sine die, and it's in, I mean, you grab the Congressional record, it's in there. Sine die means without a day. What's that mean? Well, any corporation, any body that adjourns without a day to reconvene, that's the death of the body. Okay, so they're saying the United States government ceased to exist right there in 1861 when they adjourned, sign, and die. Okay, and it sounds plausible until you start looking up a little information. Well, let's go to March 3rd, 1857. Here's the 34th Congress, so I'm going to a year prior to 1861. And this is March 3rd, 1857, the 34th Congress, adjourning, sign, and die. We're going to do a little cut-in portion of that page. And you see right here, on motion, it says that the legislative business before is now ready to adjourn. Then Mr. Fitzpatrick says, at the very end, I move, therefore, that the Senate adjourn, sign, and die. They end up having to vote, and if you go to the very last sentence at the bottom, it says, remains only to declare that the Senate stands adjourned without day, which is sign and die.
Okay.
So here they are adjourning, sign, and die in 1857. What does that mean? The federal government ceased to exist lawfully? Well, no. Why not? Well, if we go to Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, it gives the times, places, and manners for holding, for assembling, for Congress to assemble. So it says when they are adjourning, sign, and die without day, well, who's adjourning, sign, and die? What's the 34th Congress? Because a new group of people have to come in, take an oath, and they'll be the 35th Congress.
So that Congress is falling off, and the new one's coming in.
Right. That Congress is adjourning, sign, and die, not the whole Constitution and government of the United States of America, because the day to meet, the next day to meet, is prescribed and written in the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
And it's written in Article 1, Section 4, and it says that Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall be on the first Monday in December. So there's your date. Every year, first Monday in December, you have to reassemble again under a new Congress. And we're going to change the number from the 34th to the 35th to the 36th and so on. The next one is that George Washington took the wrong oath of office. And we're going to bring it up. This is out of Ed Rivera's. I went to his website because, again, I want to grab the words of the people who are putting these myths out.
Mm-hmm. And charging for them.
And, well, this guy is charging. If you look at the bottom, he is charging that you can learn more of this for $50. Learn everything you need. But he says this, and look at the confusion that's in this statement. It says both prior presidents, George Washington and John Adams, were elected President of the United States of America before each of them took an oral oath for the office of President of the United States. Well, most people don't even really see what he's talking about here. What he's talking about is putting the term, is the difference between the term the United States of America and the office of the United States, or a President of the United States, minus the of America. He's saying that all these are different governments. And he goes on, he says, there are three important presidents in the Constitution of September 17, 1787. The President of the United States of America, the President of the United States, and the office of President. We know each of these presidents is unique and separate because of the language which surrounds them in the Constitution of September 17, 1787. The President of the United States of America is the executive officer under the authority of the Articles of Confederation of November 15, 1777. Well, what did we already say about the Articles of Confederation? We abandoned them. So that office is gone. Mm-hmm. So there's no conflict here. But see, they're saying that the Articles of Confederation are still in place.
That we didn't abandon them. Adding one myth on top of another, basically.
Yeah, and he says, which requires no oath or affirmation. It says the President of the United States is required to approve or object to bills enacted by Congress, which makes him an employee. No, he's an officer, not an employee. He's an officer of the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, office of the President is a president bound to perform under and to support this Constitution, the Constitution of September 17, 1787. The President of the United States must take an oath or affirmation before he takes his office. This is how George Washington, who was President of the United States of America, became President of the United States. Well, I'm not sure George Washington was the president under the Articles of Confederation. I'm not sure about that. There were several other people. But anyways, he takes this office, I, George Washington, and we're going to compare the oath he took on the next slide, so I'm not really going to go into that. Let's go to the next paragraph. It says, by the time Thomas Jefferson was elected President of the United States of America, I guess that's under the Articles of Confederation, The power of the combination of President of the United States of America and the President of the United States was so strong, not even the author of the Declaration of Independence of July 4, 1776 could be tempted to disclose the multiple presidents contained in the American presidency. I am not constrained to conceal the secrets of the American presidency. To learn all there is to know about the presidency, law, and government, enroll in my basic course in law and government. To find out how you can begin a lifetime of learning for $50, contact Ed Rivera. Well, as you can see here, there's just so much mixed up stuff. You got the President of the United States of America, you got all these presidents these secret presidents that are in the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation are still alive and active, and it's like, and to most people, this sounds like pretty crazy. But you've been around. How many people will read this and they'll
just take it at face value and go with it, and sacrifice everything to follow it?
Right, and are they tenacious and like argumentative and like you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They won't. It's real hard to get them off that once they start following it.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, let's just go to the oath that George Washington took and the oath that's prescribed in the Constitution. And so this is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 of the Constitution, which gives the oath, and it says, and look at the words on the bottom that Ed Rivera admits to is what George Washington stated. He says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will do the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. They're virtually identical. He inserted his name and he put, so help me God, at the end. So he took the lawful oath for the Constitution of the United States that we have today.
So nothing was weird about it.
Nothing's weird about it.
Right.
But people are saying, well, he was supposed to take an oath to the office of the United States of America. I'm like, where do you get this? And this confusion that's all out there, because if he would have taken an oath that said the office of President of the United States of America, well, now he's not taking the one that's prescribed. And then you would have a conflict. And, of course, the myth people would be jumping on that one also. In this document, are they using the exact same proper noun every time? In other words, can they shorten it? And they're saying if they shorten it, they're talking about something totally different.
They've actually created two different offices and such.
It's the oath of office for President of the United States and the office of President. They're saying they're different things. Look at the wording. And it's like, okay, come on. I mean, some of these are just almost too laughable. Again, the myth is we still operate under the Articles of Confederation. I think we've kind of already beat that one up. And then we got the Articles of Confederation, and some people say the Northwest Ordinance created the government of the United States of America. I've addressed the Articles of Confederation creating the government of the United States of America because the tag along to this is that we're still under it. Okay? The Articles of Confederation were abandoned. We don't have those. Okay, so now it's the Northwest Ordinance. Now I got people saying, well, the Northwest Ordinance created a government called the United States of America. I've been told this one. And that we're still operating under that. So now we want to operate under the Northwest Ordinance. And here's what the Northwest Ordinance was about. It was an ordinance created in 1787 because we acquired this property here, which is now Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota, that we acquired this property from Great Britain. Well, what do we do with this? And that's what the Northwest Ordinance was about. Well, let's write down the process by which we take territory that we're acquiring and we convert it over to states in the American Union. Okay? And so I'm just going to read Article 13 of the Northwest Ordinance. It says, Section 13, and for extending the fundamental principles of civil and religious liberty, which form the basis whereon these republics, their laws and constitutions are erected, to fix and establish those principles as the basis of all laws, constitutions, and governments, which forever hereafter shall be formed in said territory. So we're talking about forming these governments with constitutions in these territories, to provide also for the establishment of states and permanent government therein. See, now they're talking about an organizational government until they meet the qualifications of being a state, which meant they had to have a certain amount of population. I think it was 50,000 or 60,000, somewhere around there. Okay, so to provide also for the establishment of states and permanent government therein, and for their admission to a share in the federal councils, which is Congress, on an equal footing with the original states, at as early period as may be consistent with the general interest. Okay, and so the issue you've got here is, what's the Northwest Ordinance? It's to sit there and take this territory here and try to have a procedure by which we organize it, and we divide it into states, and they submit constitution. We recognize their governments. We make them new states. You know, how are we going to make new states out of these territories? And that's all it is.
Makes sense.
But the problem is, this was done under the Articles of Confederation. Well, now the Articles of Confederation were abandoned. Okay, now we're under the Constitution. Is the Northwest Ordinance still valid because it wasn't passed by the government of the United States under the Constitution? Because now you got two different entities. A very valid question there. Well, August 7th, 1789, the U.S. Congress affirmed the ordinance and adopted it into that body. So the Northwest Ordinance isn't just alive under the Articles of Confederation. It's alive under the Constitution of the United States of America. That one was abandoned. Those are the myths. That's it.
Excellent. Well, thanks, John. I think you did a pretty good job, and maybe we'll get some questions on those. We've got a lot of myths here.
We've got a lot of myths.
They come up often, and you can't get. It's hard to get back to the truth if you've got a bunch of other junk going on that you got to filter through.
Right, and again, what we want is clarity. These myths get in the way of clarity. We're so confused. We don't know what the root cause of our problems are. We're looking in all these other places, and our goal is to let's get people out of all these other causes. You know, I'm trying to be as respectful as we can with these other groups because, I mean, we don't want to just make them mad. We want them to start getting on towards, let's get lawful government back.
Let's actually look at the research, do your own research and learn and find the truth.
Right.
Discover the truth for yourself.
But some people are very vested with this stuff, and they get very angry when you're challenged, as I've seen.
Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you going over this.
Thanks.